Welcome to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. I am Dave Polykoff, your personal brand consultant, helping you launch, grow, and monetize a personal brand. If you are looking to build, launch, or grow a personal brand in 2025, then make sure to check out davepolykoff.com, where I will work with you on a consultative basis to help you achieve those personal branding goals. On today's episode, we have Matt Tack, human longevity expert at Alessi Functional Health. Today, we're going to chat with Matt about how we can improve our mental state, our physical state, in order to show up our best for both our business and our audience. So, Matt, welcome to the show.
Dave, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to definitely dig in and learn from you and hopefully give some good, valuable feedback.
For sure. I mean, I know your space is quite the interesting niche. I know it's grown a lot, this industry, this niche over the last maybe 5 or 10 years. And I think some people from the outside see it and they don't really kind of understand the inner workings of exactly what it means to kind of improve ourselves from like an individual standpoint, both mentally and physically. So kind of define for us like what it is specifically you do and how do you help people?
Yeah, so my partner is Dr. Alessi. Unfortunately, couldn't be on the show today. He's in clinic, so he's more the clinic manager, and then I handle the back on business stuff. But what we do in particular is it's proactive and reactive health, depending on when you want to look at it, right? Unfortunately, in the society we live in right now, a lot of people are straying towards the reactive, right? I got something wrong, and I need to fix it now. Ideally, you want to have the headspace of proactive health, right? And what does it mean to be 70 years old and be like physically fit and optimal in your health, right? And that means that you need to be probably less inflamed, inflamed being overweight, right? In your 30s and 40s, right? You need to protect that. And so there's usually a gap period that happens. People just have kids and busyness of life and then kind of make excuses with work not to optimize their health. And so that's why it's becoming this like kind of emerging a market of like that health and wellness and longevity care is because people are like honestly being a little bit more reactive to their health and they're like, oh, I need to question what I've been doing for the last 20 years. So we talk to a lot of 40-year-olds and 50-year-olds. They're like, man, I wish I started earlier. But the good thing is that there's no better time than now, right? Just like a personal brand, right? You are your brand, whether you realize it or not. And the way people look at you is a demonstration of like, unfortunately or fortunately is going to reflect on how you actually hold your body, right? So if that is your brand, right? You carry it every day in and out of your house to your kids, to your wife, and to anyone that you encounter. And so really in the essence and tying it to our personal brand, it's just the image that you are bearing to the world. And so are you being proactive about that or reactive? And if you're being a little bit more reactive, again, that's okay. But like, then what's the game plan to make yourself more proactive in the long term, what the next decade looks like? And so there's a number of things that crunch into that. But we start with the central nervous system. So at the clinic itself is specifically chiropractic care and then joint repair. So we do soft wave technology there for just natural stem cell production. And I can get that. It's a little nerdy side of things. But then, we go across the board of just kind of holistically getting the structure right. And then we tie into the nutrition piece. What does your nutrition look like for optimized health? And then beyond, if you're hitting your 40s and 50s, what does your hormones look like? That's a big thing that has come on the scene now that we want to just make sure that what is your hormone balance? Are you routinely getting blood work? So that in a nutshell is kind of like the broader scope of what we do at Alessi, and then what we do for others digitally in the digital space.
So you mentioned something key there was reactive and proactive with your health. So it sounds like in some cases, I'll ask you the question then in terms of what does that mean to be reactive versus proactive? People are kind of coming to you proactively to avoid certain things, and then reactive, I guess, is when someone is feeling something. Can you kind of walk us through the difference?
Yeah, so really, there's a couple different frames in which you look at it. I guess I could, I'll take it back to me personally, right? Uh, One of the things that I saw like a decline in, like, I had really like mental fatigue, like heavy mental fatigue, right? And so I was aware of that. And so awareness is one of the most critical pieces of being slightly proactive, right? Instead of dealing with pain or dealing with fogginess, right? You don't have to. There's probably something wrong that your body's trying to tell you. And so for me, I chose to get my blood work done, found out I was low on testosterone and I just didn't have a good transfer of different blood that was going through my body. So my hormones were just completely out of whack, had a little bit of a thyroid issue. So I then was like, all right, how do we correct this, right? Um, Versus, and I was working out, I was staying lean, I thought I was doing the right things, but my body was telling me something different. So that was me, right? And I would say I'm a little bit more proactive in that approach, right? I want to deal with it within a month or two time frame. If it feels off, I don't want to like continue to struggle. Like let's figure it out, right? Always asking yourself questions. Whereas the reactive portion is like, I'm gonna deal with this for a while. Man, my back's killing me. That then back pain turns into sciatica for like 3 or 4 months, and then I'm like all out of whack. My hormones are all out of whack. I'm dealing with an aggressive type pain, and then it comes to the point where like I have to do something about this because I've been putting this off for the last 8 months, right? And so those are some of the things versus like, all right, how are you proactive? And I call it just shortening the gap, right? So as your body's telling you something, how am I making conscious choices that are ultimately going to be for my benefit? So I just want to make sure I shorten that gap where I'm like, okay, maybe something's going on, maybe not, right? But I can question it and then maybe potentially correct it or do something a little bit different. So, and I'll give you one more example. Like right now, like I've had like some knee pain, never had knee pain, right? And so I'm like, man, why ultimately am I getting knee pain? Well, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you're getting old, you don't, that's just part of the aging process. When in reality, it's not. There's some meniscus. And then I was like, all right, well, what can I do about it? And so right now I'm doing some like knee work, like very specific knee work to strengthen my knees a little bit more, specifically my meniscus. And I want to be proactive about that, right? I don't want to like be like, oh, me getting old, right? That's what everyone wants to say. But how can I question it and then slightly improve it? So those are some of the things within the past 3 weeks that I've been doing now on a daily basis just to improve the structure of my knees. And then modifying my workouts ever so slightly so that I have less, weight on my shoulders, more weight on my lower back, still working out legs. So those are just some of the small ways that we can correct, but we're always questioning, right? Hey, well, what's my body trying to tell me? Because your central nervous system is always trying to tell you something.
So, our audience being those who are solopreneurs, untraditional, or maybe a little bit more traditional these days, but untraditional in the sense of they are a one person show and they're trying to juggle and wear every hat in their business, late nights, early mornings. What's the importance of being proactive with your health when it comes to being someone who's trying to go through that grind as a solopreneur at building their personal brand? Why should they care or put focus towards their and be proactive with their health?
Yeah, I always go back to like, well, do you want to shorten it so that you make less money, or do you want to potentially have a longer, health span and lifespan to make more money, right? So many people think in the short term, like I got to get it all now, right? But if you truly structure that and you can optimize your health, you can be more efficient, right? One of the things is like I eliminated, don't get me wrong, I love my sports. So I like watching sports, but like I don't watch a ton of them because I'm like, well, if sports replaces me working out, well, then of course, I'm not going to be watching the sport, right? I got to be working out, and so you can control your habits. I have something in my office that says, "Watch your thoughts, for they become words. Watch your words, for they become actions. Watch your actions, for they become habits, and habits become character. Character becomes your destiny." Right? So you have to be aware of that, and it's constantly that thought process of like what are like what do your habits look like? Because everyone has 20 to 25 minutes in a given day to get themselves out of breath. And that's one of my like majors is like if you feel like you can't go to the gym, and there's been a season of my life where I couldn't go to the gym. My daughter, I had three daughters super close together. They're a little bit older now, so I have a little bit more autonomy. But then I brought things back home and I was like, I need to optimize. So I got kettlebells and I just got a barbell for outside just to hit it really quick. But I was optimizing so that I could get back to work because I was in that grind phase, right? So for everyone that like, yeah, it's just too much. I can't go to the gym. I can't do that. Well, like you just need to optimize, right? Maybe you don't watch a sports game. Maybe there's that one thing you don't do because everything is a sacrifice in one way or another. And so it's equating what that is because if you think it in terms of health span, if you're constantly in that grind phase, like, and that's your forward action, like you're likely probably not going to get out of that, right? It's always going to be grind. Like, oh, I need to get to that next level and that next level. And it's like, well, what does your health look like at that next level? And so it's internalizing that. And then, sometimes just optimizing it. So it might be where you only can get a 20, 25-minute workout. But man, like if you have an accountability, hey, we're just going to bust this out between 5 a.m. and 5:25, right? That's like, those are some of the best ways to really like to optimize your schedule because no one usually not everyone's up at 5 a.m. Working out, right? So if you want to grind a little bit harder, get up at between 5 and 5:30. So that's my real answer to anyone is like, what do you want your health span to look like? Well, then if you do want that, then you just need to optimize efficiently.
What's like your origin story of getting into this space? Because it sounds like you've dealt with some hurdles, maybe medical hurdles that you've had to overcome or figure out. So like, how did you get into this space?
Yeah, for sure. So I was working for a Fortune 50 company. I was working for this company called Accenture, and when I moved to DC, so like I lived in Michigan, and I was like, I was interested in the health and wellness space, so I got my like personal training certificate then, and started like kind of dabbling in it. So I'd get up really early and train people, but then I would also train myself. So I was grinding early and then I would go to work and then I would get a few more clients on the back end. So that was the initial introduction to like I guess weight training, even though I always trained, but then training other people. And then as I started getting into my 30s and started having kids, kind of that was that something switched in me where I was like, all right, well, what does now my health span look like? How do I optimize this? And so, started doing cold therapy, heat therapy, like all these different things and modalities that I brought in. And then within the past couple of years, it's been, dabbling into a few other things. So it's been a scale up over time. I'm 39 now, but it's been scaling up over time of implementing things along the way. But I would truly say the biggest trigger was when I started having kids and I'm like, man, I want to be a resemblance to them. And so bringing it back to like my personal brand, it's like if I'm not a king in my house, like then I lost it all on the other side, right? I want the image when I leave people to perceive me away, but man, the most important is how my wife perceives me and how my kids perceive me. And so that was the biggest thing for me of like I got to be a perception because the reality is they see what I do and then ultimately that becomes potentially their habits like so they see daddy like keeping staying trim even well into 40s 50 you know what I mean into his 30s where a lot of guys kind of let loose in their 30s. So for me it's just been that changing of being a dad and then being a brand to them most importantly and what am I fueling that brand to them. And so that's like the probably the top on my list. So to answer your question specifically, though, getting into the space kind of started early on, just in that personal training environment, and then has since has evolved. And then obviously earlier this year, I invest into some businesses. And one of my good friends, he owned Lessie Functional Health, which is Dr. Lessie. And so that's how we came together. And really, I invested into the clinic, and we just have been growing that clinic here in Tampa Bay.
I want to speak on that a little bit too. So, I mean, I was as a business owner, you are investing into your own personal brand to help grow the business as well. What are some of the tactics that you have found that have been proven to have like the most ROI, most return on your investment for helping maybe get more brand awareness for yourself and then maybe more awareness and clients for the business as well?
Being consistent with posting, just naturally, like, and one of the big things is so many people want to overcomplicate the process. And I was one of those people. I spent so many thousands of dollars, like literally tens of thousands of dollars, like overcomplicating the process. And then I ultimately was like, I just need to be me, right? And take it with stride and show people my life, right? What's my life? And my life is, health as a very very much top priority. My family, very much so. Business coming after that. So that those were all big priorities. Faith, I should say, like my top priority, and then everything falls underneath that. But though consistent with just like putting the message out there of like what I'm doing, right? And then just be hopefully that being an empowerment to other people as well. So I try to do that pretty regularly. So does Dr. Alessi. We just, put stuff that we love doing, right? So if we're playing basketball or lacrosse, right? Why not post about that? Let people know, hey, I enjoy golf and I play golf with my kids, right? So intertwining those things of like that activity, and hopefully that builds influence in other people to see the same thing of like, oh, he's doing this, and it's not trying to put on some facade that I'm, trying to gather leads. I'm just trying to be organic, of like how we represent ourselves. And I will say, like, you know, Dr. Alessi being a doctor and then me being an owner of that business, it is super helpful. Number one, when we're top of mind, we're posting organically, we're running ads, but that somebody comes in and they're like, I can respect you because you're a physically fit doctor, right? I can respect your opinion because I see that you're doing these things to like optimize your health. And so that's been a big thing for us in pushing our brand that way and holding our bodies to that standard as well. Because when people come in, if we're 50 pounds overweight and hey, we're gonna do this for you, and it's like, are you actually like, I don't know, So then the question becomes that. So that's why it's so important for us to make sure that, you know, we dedicate that time every day to, in fact, I was running back home from the gym from this podcast because get it in and then come back and get back to work. So that's been a super helpful is just like being organic with our brand. It's who we are. We're dads. I'm a husband. And then also like, what is it that's important to me? And I think that everyone that follows me, and Dr. Alessi and Alessi Functional Health, like they would know, that's, oh yeah, he's got some kids. He's a dad, he likes working out and keeping himself cut. So yeah, I would say those are some of the most basic things is just being consistent and being who you are.
For sure. So again, solopreneurs, we're working from home, and especially like with work from home just being like the new norm now after 2020, and people aren't as active anymore because they're not, walking to their car, walking up the stairs at their business anymore. They're sitting at home. They're only walking to like the kitchen and whatnot. So maybe not as active and sitting at desks for a long time. What are some things that we need to worry about being the work from home solopreneur lifestyle that are going to have some maybe negative repercussions on our health that are some just key things to fair warning? And then how can we avoid those things? What are some things that we can maybe put into our routine to help avoid that?
That's a really, really good question. And it's one that, people don't, the things that I'm going to give you are like the most basic and super simple things that people don't realize. But when you're in front of your computer and on calls all day, you don't realize that you're not breathing. Like it's very short breaths. And so one thing that I put in my phone is like take some gut breaths. It's a reminder on my phone. So one of the big things is just like literally breathing through your nose 10 times, like just real deep, fill your air up, fill your lungs up with air and just like letting it out, right? So just spending like 1 to 2 minutes of deep breathing, super helpful. Another thing that helps avoid burnout is like taking a break and getting outside. We're in Florida, so getting some sunshine is super helpful. That indirect sunlight exposure, getting vitamin D. What people don't realize is that when you don't get outside and you don't get vitamin D supply, you'll have lack of melatonin supply as you go to bed at night. So then your sleep probably has less quality. And if you truly want to optimize the next day and be efficient in those calls and everything you do, you need to get outside. You need to take breaks and you need to like walk. And so walk without your phone is a big thing too, of just like getting out, just like, cutting off from technology for just, 5 or 10 minutes, just taking short walks. And then the third thing that I, highly recommend, and it's one thing in our Genesis protocol that we have for our nutritional plan, is understanding your pH levels. People don't, what are pH? It's drinking enough water, and making sure you have clean water sources, right? And so you should always have water near wherever you're working. And so when you're working throughout the day, like, are you getting like at least like a liter of water in you? So water is so important to our body, our hydration, and the way we're optimizing and thinking on a daily basis. And so those are like, those are no brainer things that many people don't do. Many people are very underhydrated. They don't like breathe and breathe efficiently. And then, thirdly is, many people like want to just push through. If I'm not working, I'm missing out on something. It's always this constant FOMO, right? As solo entrepreneurs. So making sure we're doing those things are extremely critical, and just routines that you can blend in and stack with other things.
What are some of the typical reasons that people are coming to you? Is there kind of the common issues that you're seeing, or have you seen maybe even trends in issues that are happening or occurring more frequently now than they have in the past?
Yeah, it's the same old. People are becoming way and way more overweight, right? Obesity is at an all-time high. I think that it's been classified that over 80% of Americans are considered obese. And that would be like on a BMI factor. And so, like, we see a world, from a visionary standpoint, like in America, that's like just juiced and pumped. You know what I mean? Like, how awesome would that be if everyone was friggin' ripped and like like healthy? And so, but it's not. We're just like a bleeding society. And so then that becomes with the infractions of like what we're doing to our body when we're 30, 40 pounds overweight. And that's been a major, major thing, is like people just don't realize what they're eating, and putting into their faces. A lot of processed foods, not a lot of whole foods. One thing, I just put like fruits by my, in my office, just to make sure I'm eating quality fruit, high in fibers. Like, those are just some of the things that people are missing out on. They just naturally gravitate to the potato chips, to things that are just going to stick to them. And then ultimately, where did this 20 pounds come from in the past 2 years? So that's been the biggest thing that we've seen. And then naturally, when you're holding on to 25, 30 pounds of weight, what does that do to your back? What does that do to your knees? All the other things that come across. Your body, your circulatory system isn't as like optimized as it could be. So like, then you have blood issues, your hormones aren't transferring appropriately. So, you know, it's just an unfortunate situation, but like our vision is to help as many physically people as possible, really like see their value in what image they bring to the world. And that's getting them back to where, that what Dr. Peter Attia calls it, medicine 3.0, which is, the basic fundamentals. Are we exercising every day? What are we putting into our body? Are we being properly hydrated? So those are the big things that we're focusing on.
We want to show up as best we can when we're trying to do like deep work or strategize on things or building things, or even just on sales calls. We need to be kind of mentally sharp just to make sure we close that sale. What are some things that are maybe people are typically doing wrong that are creating kind of that mental fog and not putting us at our most like prime mental state? And what are some of the things that we should be doing in order to ensure that we're always just as sharp as possible?
So my question back to you, what is the general age of the audience that listens to the podcast?
It's 25 to 45.
25 to 45? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm going to split that up then, because I think there's a number of things that can kind of come into play. Uh, 25, I'll speak to the 25 to 35 first. So 25 to 35 is everything that it basically I aforementioned. Like, how are you optimizing your sleep? Are you questioning your sleep, right? Because you're gonna be more alert and more well processed if you have high quality sleep, right? And so if you know that you're efficiently sleeping, kudos to you. If you know you're like, man, I could be a lot better at my sleep, well then are you getting outside in the morning, right? You know, that's a big thing. Indirect sunlight exposure. Are you staying properly hydrated early in the day? Not really later in the day, but earlier in the day. And then what type of foods are you eating? Are high protein meals, right? You know, that's the way the nutrition works is like if you load up on carbs and fats, which I tend to stray towards protein and fats in the morning, your brain operates off of fats, right? So like if you can get those nut butters, those almond butters, cashew butters, whatever peanut butters are fine too, high in electrolytes. But like if you can get those fats in the morning as well as protein, you're less likely going to have this like quick spike and crash if you're loading on carbs in the morning. If you're eating like cereal, you're definitely not going to feel well middle of the day, right? So that naturally is going to create a fog. So understanding your nutrition and staying hydrated, all those things really allow you to become more efficient later in the day. So that's 25 to 35. Of course, get it working out. That also is going to get that central nervous system pumped. I like doing it in the middle of the day. Mornings are good too. Evenings tend to interrupt your sleep. So if you typically can get your workouts in earlier in the day and let your basically your heart rate get up. So we call that your heart rate variability. If you can have your heart rate variability like no later than 2 p.m., that's ideal because then you're coming down, you're descending. So then you can get more quality sleep. And sleep is everything to longevity. So I would say that to the 25 to 35. Now, there's other things that come into play when you're married, you have kids, you're post kids, and you're coming into that 35 to 45, you're done having kids. I would recommend getting blood work, and then understanding where your hormone levels are at. And for a man and for a woman, like where are your testosterone levels at, right? Mine significantly declined when I went from 37 to 39. And so I got on testosterone replacement therapy, completely flipped the script on that mental fog at 3 p.m. So I get my blood work done every 6 months. I was getting it done every quarter. Now I get it done every 6 months. But I would encourage guys to get their blood work done more to really understand, hey, if I'm in the 2 or 300s, I would highly recommend testosterone replacement therapy. And that helps with the brain fog. That's what I was having. That was the diagnosis there. Had a little bit of a thyroid issue. Corrected everything once I got on testosterone. Blood panels all came back positive. So 35 to 45, when you're in that range, blood work is, I would say, the most pivotal thing that you could do to really understand the body, and then still incorporating the things that I aforementioned with the 25 to 35.
So next, we're mentally sharp, but we want to start creating some video content, which means we want to show up on camera and we want to look our best, meaning we want the hair to look great, we want the skin to be glowing, we want to look like we're in shape, at least from the, maybe chest up. Um, so what would you advise us who want to make sure that we are able to show up looking great on camera? Some little steps that we can take today to just kind of progress our physical appearance and start making our way towards just really being able to just present ourselves on camera in the best light.
Presenter, yeah. So that's a good question. I think it really falls into the daily activities. So But like a demonstration of, for me, even though I'm saying it, I got this beard going. I've had this beard going for a couple days now. Um, but if you do want to look like a little bit cleaner, trimming up is always good. Staying nice and tight, on camera, is always a beneficial thing. So that's one of the things that just naturally, like if you're clean shaven or you got a nice haircut, that presentation is neat, right? Like
Is
you're
there
you're
anything
creating a
that
neat.
helps make the skin give a little bit more? I've heard that things like, hydration just helps the skin a little bit grow a little bit more. Is there things that you can eat that help with like making sure that you have clearer skin or more naturally glowing skin? I'm not sure if that's your department, but
The I use colloidal silver for like my face and like various things. So a lot of people actually don't know about colloidal silver. It's like it's a like a bacteria cleanser. So you can spray that in your nose, you can spray that in your ears. And essentially that removes anything like a cold. Like if you have a cold oncoming, I get vitamin C and then use colloidal silver for my ears and nose and my skin, right? So that was one of the things that I've done routinely. But there's also I can't remember the name of it too. It's not. I wouldn't say it's really like my department, but it is one I'm thinking about too, um, because. I'm actually going over to Mexico and getting a hair transplant. So I'm getting a Turkish doctor to line me up.
yeah.
So skin is really important. I mean, it's the largest organ in the body. One thing that I drink that I had installed at my house is hydrogen water. So it has a little bit more added hydrogen to the water than just your natural, and then it's filtered with reverse osmosis. But I think some of the best water is spring water. Like if you just have like spring water, I think that's like the cleanest water you can get. It's phenomenal. But staying hydrated is naturally going to have the most implications to like everything, right? If you stay hydrated, your skin looks better. Just the quality of just how you articulate yourself is better, right? Everything around the board is better when you're well hydrated. Another thing that I would say though, the hyperhydration that they have, we used the first form packets, and then liquid IV is another one. They're a little bit sweeter in nature, but you can efficiently get electrolytes in your body. So that is another thing that just like electrolytes naturally give you a little bit more pigmentation, a little bit more like I guess you could say a little bit not rosacea, but just naturally you have blood flowing in your body. So you want, those are just still beneficial things to like present yourself on camera a little bit better so that like you're alert, you're speaking articulately, those things that I think are super profound and helpful. But I do want to mention though, I want to try it out. Tony Gonzalez, he was the tight end for the Kansas City Chiefs for a while. He's been pushing this stuff on Instagram, and I swear I want to try it out. It's like instead of giving, because I'm not a big believer in Botox, because you're essentially putting a toxin in your body, right? It's like sterilizing it, but not sterilizing, it's paralyzing it. So, but like this is it just like I think it's a cream or an oil. And dude, he looks good. Like Tony Gonzalez looks phenomenal. So I would maybe even look into that because I think that's those are the questions though that we're talking about from like a brand is like yeah like ask those questions like how can I present myself even a little bit better. So I do that's why I'm getting my hair lined up.
There you go. Yeah, as quote unquote superficial as it is, you need to be scroll stop worthy and just kind of making sure that you work on your physical appearance. It helps in the as people are scrolling through your feed. So can you walk us through what's like a prime example or an average example of someone who's come to you with a certain problem, you've provided some solution and kind of the outcome they've had? Is there a specific case study you could walk us through just to kind of give us an example of, what a typical interaction with you and the doctor would look like?
Yeah, for sure. So typically, so who handles all of our nutrition? We have a nutritionist on our team, and so they come in and then we just evaluate them. So that like we'll basically take them through the process of just asking them a question like, "What's your end goal?" Because a big reason is like the why. Like, what's the why behind you're trying to do this? And so that's the big thing, getting it at them. What's the why? What's really the pain level, right? So like is it, some people, we had a guy the other day came in, was he having some back issues, but he was also 40, 50 pounds overweight, right? And so he's like, well, what's on your priority list right now? Like, is it the back? Is it, well, yeah, it's the back, but is the back going to get better if I'm like still 50 pounds overweight? And so we guided him through that process of like, let's focus on the nutrition first, right? And so when we focused on the nutrition, now we build out the 90-day game plan. Because our Genesis protocol, you lose roughly about a half a pound to a pound a day. And so through this process, he's going to lose probably give or take, 40 pounds in that 40 plus pounds in that 90-day time frame, right? Then he's going to evaluate. All right, how do I feel? How structurally, how do I feel as he's going through that process? And now we're going to be working structurally on the back, as he's dropping this weight. So we've had a number of case studies where guys like, I just want to come in and lose, 25, 30 pounds. And the whole goal at the end of the day is not necessarily to just lose the weight. You also want to put on muscle that in that time frame too. Like, so one of our big things is giving them, the programming to go along with that. So like we have an app at our clinic that you can access, that you can go in and then your programming's built out. So when you go to the gym, you can just follow the process. So we've had there's 4 or 5, Zach, Justin, I'm just thinking of them offhand, that, their goal was to drop 30 pounds. So they went through the nutritional side. They were really focused on that. But while they were doing that, they were actually doing like workout programming too, through the app that we already had basically programmed there and set up, where they were able to get kind of this cadence, right? Um, of, all right, I'm building muscle, so they were seeing wins, but then also dropping weight at the same time. So there's a number of those. A lot of women come in, they don't necessarily want to train. You don't have to train on our Genesis protocol, but man, you're going to see so much more improvement if you do. But a lot of the women that come in, they're like, I just want to lose 30 pounds. Well, okay, then we need to focus on your nutrition and your hydration. So, those are some of the main things that we work on our side to just, guide them along that process and their journey.
If someone was interested in, I guess, either coming in for in person, or I think you offer maybe virtual as
Yeah,
well.
we offer
What's
virtual as well.
awesome. So how would someone get a hold of you to kind of learn more about those offers?
Yeah, you can book an appointment through lessiefxhealth.com. That would be the way. You can just basically click on whatever motive you want. So if it's chiropractic care or weight loss, or you can reach out to me directly. I just basically put you in a chain with Zeke, and Zeke basically kind of takes you through that process. We set up an appointment. It's really that really personalized care that we like giving everybody. So many people think scale, scale, scale. We just really want to add value to as many people. So we really have an attention to detail, and it's more personalized. So I'm on Instagram at human.optimizer, and you can find me on Facebook at Matthew Tack.
Perfect. That's all for today's episode of Personal Brand Blueprint. A big thank you to Matt for helping us walk through how we can best optimize our mental and physical state so we can grow and monetize our personal brands. To learn more about how to launch, grow, or monetize your personal brand, subscribe to the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast. Follow me, Dave Polykoff, on LinkedIn, and check out Matt's Instagram as well. All links to those will be in the show notes below. And reach out to me on davepolykoff.com for a free consultation. Thank you, and see you on the next episode of the Personal Brand Blueprint.